Hey, I'm Jim Johnson, your host here with Contractor Radio, and I want to thank you for taking the time today to listen to our show. And our show is all about you, helping you get control of your business so you can grow your business and find that personal and financial freedom you're after. So, hang on tight, episode's about to start. Now, you're a bit of a different bird, and I think you would admit that yourself.
Weirdo.
Do you think most kids in middle school and high school were thinking about speaking in public or owning their own business? Maybe some owning their own business, but I would think most were, I'm going to be a firefighter. I'm going to be an athlete.
Sure.
I'm going to be a doctor. I'm going to be a lawyer. Like this big, high aspiration.
Well, now it's like TikTok superstar.
YouTube influencer, like all that stuff, right?
That wasn't around when I was a kid, so those weren't options.
Which may very well be options. And so I want to talk about this from two sides today. There's the human individual side, and then there's the business side. And I think there's some alignment between those two things. So what happened, right? Like what happens to most of us? We have these big aspirations. I can remember, man, I dreamed of being a professional baseball player, and that didn't work out. And I was like, I got to go get a job, and I'm going to keep working that job to try and make that thing work out later. Like I got to go do this, and still that dream is there. But everyday life, everyday work, everyday everything, led me on a different path. The question was the dream the right dream? Being a professional baseball player? Or was it something else and I just wasn't clicking to it yet? And so coming back to the business side of it for a second, well, actually, let's stay with the personal side. I go do events all the time. And one of my favorite questions to ask people is, what's your purpose? But that's a secondary question. It's a secondary question to get to the real question I want to get figured out. But that first question I asked that's really secondary to what I'm shooting for, the majority of the time, I don't get an answer. And if I do, they've thought about it for a little bit, and it tends to be like what I did with my grandfather. It tends to be a very shoot from the hip. I thought of a couple things I liked. I want to do that, right? Have you experienced any of that with whenever you're coaching clients or talking with one of your buddies or just people in general?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, we get preached at a lot about setting goals and breaking them down into smaller pieces, right? And then you got to get in the grind and the hustle, and you got to work hard, and all that stuff's great, you know. But if you think like you remember either being a kid or having a kid or have it, like I've got nieces and nephews, and there's always that age or that point at which they get into that why, right? And they go, why is that happening? Well, because of this. Why is that happening? Well, because of this. Why? Because of this. Why? Because of this, right? And you can go down that path eventually. You can go down that path with your, I don't know, probably your 3, 4, 5-year-old. And then at some point you hit a stop. And it's like, okay, kid, well, that's the way that it is.
It's just because right? It's blue. The sky is blue because it's blue.
That's right. Because when you look at it, it's blue. Yeah. And so what's interesting is it's such a curious component to a 4 or 5-year-old. They want to understand what's going on and why a thing is the way that it is. And then I think sometimes we quit asking ourselves those questions as we get older. We get old, we get crusty, we get set in our ways. And we quit asking ourselves why. And as an example, like with the coaching, entrepreneurs, almost all of them have these giant dreams. And I can't tell you the number of times I've asked somebody, like, what's your dream? What are you trying to do with this business? And I hear something like, I want to have a 20 or 30 or 50. I've heard $100 million company. And I love that. I'm like, okay, cool. Why? So I get to be a 5-year-old again. And it's so funny because it's such a simple question, but it stumps this very intelligent, very motivated, very hardworking person, stumps them. I've yet to ask somebody, why do you want a $100 million company, and have them go, well, because this is why. And it have be a legit reason. Because here's what I can tell you. If you and your wife or your husband or your family have these goals like, well, we'd like to have a really nice home. We want to be out of debt. We want a place on the lake. We want a boat. We want decent vacations. We want to be able to fly. But I tell you what, you don't need a $100 million company to do that. You can do that with a $2 or $3 million company, like way less to provide all these things that you set forth for your family. So then the question, so when you get down and you go, well, how much money do you need? If you're making $500 to $1 million a year, you and your family probably have the resources to do pretty much anything and everything you want. Okay, great. So let's just say we get you to $1 million a year or 500 grand. Okay. And you're going to hit that number. You're going to hit that number, depending on how efficient you are, at probably less than 10 million. So once you hit that number and you've kind of got these things that you guys were after, what's going to keep you attacking this $100 million goal when you still have 95 million to go?
Yeah, that's the thing. And we see it over and over again, especially when people are about a number. And we tend to, really and truthfully, like if we were going to get down to brass tacks, we really like break people's dreams apart. They come in thinking one thing, and we're like, all right, so why not 95 or 105 million? Why is it 100 million? And then they'll kind of pause for a second. And a lot of times you'll get back, it's like some kind of achievement, or they've accomplished something, like they gets them in the top 10. Why is that important? Why is it important to be in the top 10? Do you feel like you need to prove something to somebody? Is that really what's going on? And we're digging is what we're doing. And we're trying to break that dream down to better serve the human.
Whenever I'm talking to a contractor and they're having some sales struggles, I had a conversation with a guy just a month and a half ago, I think it was. And he was telling me, man, it's just, we haven't had a storm. There's just no business out there. And I even talked to the suppliers, and the suppliers are saying that nobody's really putting that many orders in. Okay. I talked to another guy in his same market, and that guy said to me, it is a little slow. That just means we have to go find it. Which one of those two guys do you think is in more risk of going out of business? Okay. Now, one of the number one things that I will say first is whenever somebody's like, well, we're looking for, we're kind of slowing down a little bit, your pipeline. Okay. Your pipeline. Now, a lot of guys don't pay attention to pipeline because there is a lot of emphasis on one call closing in-home sales. Okay. Now, don't mishear me. I am not ever advocating that you don't close when you can, and you shouldn't try to close at every moment. Okay. Don't hear me wrong. That being said, there are people out there like me. Okay. Who enjoys the sales process, does get excited, and will, and when I get excited and I start drooling over the possibility of purchasing something new and cool, I hit the brakes. That's me. And I go, time out. This guy has done a very good job of getting me excited to do this thing, and I appreciate him for doing that. I am going to sleep on this. And if I feel the same way in the morning, I'm going to pull the trigger. That's my buying process. I'm sure Chuck has a name for guys like me. What is it?
Sleep on it, guys.
Sleep on it, guys.
The mattress people.
Mattress people? Oh, all right. I'll take sleep on it, guy. I don't think I'm a mattress person. And so guys like me will fall into your pipeline.
Yep.
Okay. Pipelines are essentially the people who did not get captured on your one call close. Okay. Salespeople are notoriously avoiding and not dealing with their pipeline. Okay. Now, some some companies, especially larger companies, will make up for this by hiring somebody to do that. Right? We call that the refresh or the rehash. That's what I'm looking for. Right? But if you're a sales guy out there and you feel like your closing percentage is struggling, the first place I would go are the appointments I didn't close. I would call them, all of them, right? And I'll let Chuck and Dave. Now, once again, because in-home sales has such like a one-call close driving component to it, sometimes this gets ignored, okay? But the people you didn't close are more likely to close than the ones you haven't talked to yet. So I'll let you guys jump onto that one here.
And Nathan, I am so glad that you didn't jump right into an always be closing Glenn Ross speech. I love it.
No.
But let's talk about this. So there's so many people that will come to us, whether it's you or Dave, myself, or Jim, and they'll say, "How do I get more leads? How do I get more leads?" And you want to spin it around and say, "What are you doing with the leads you already have?"
Yeah.
You have a database of thousands of people in this thing. And then the moment you mention rehash, oh, no, we don't get into all that. I'm not saying that you call everybody and tell them you have product that fell off the back of a truck. That's what used to happen. But, and I'm not going to make this about rehash, but you have to understand that you squeeze the towel. There's a database of people that we like to call just the home improvement procrastinators. And they're just waiting for someone to get back in touch with them.
Mattress people.
But when you're looking at rehash, it can't go back to the same sales guy. It can't. If it is a lead from the company, that is that company's lead, and they have to have a detailed process. Not, hey guys, I need you to get back in touch with your pendings. That's not going to do anything. The sales guys are going to look at all the low-hanging fruit that they think is going to close. You move it over to a different set of people, and it may just be one person. I mean, we have a girl by the name of Alicia. She is an absolute bulldog. She will get in touch with you, and if you will engage in a conversation with her, which she's going to call you, she's going to go through a survey with you, and at the end of the survey, she's going to ask you why you didn't buy. She doesn't really care what you say, but she's going to ask you why you didn't buy. No matter what you say, she's going to tell you that she has a manager in the area that she would like to get another set of eyes on this. She's not talking about any discounts. Remember, I'm with Dave. Why give him a discount? Even though I'm ringing the towel, many times we can get them for more than what they were looking for before. It was the sales guy was pinpointing on a lower system, and what the customer really wanted was something that they wanted them to get sold on something higher, but not to get into a discussion on that of how much of this. Now, my experience is that you can close 80% of rehash. Here's why.
Whoa, hold on a second.
Not of your.
Chuck just said you can close 80% of your rehash. Your cost to do that versus find new business. Remember, we're talking about profitability here. That's why I started this out by saying that is a gold mine in your pocket that you're just ignoring. So sorry, Chuck, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but I just wanted to poke that.
No, and it's when you're looking at rehash itself, the cost of rehash is very low because these are jobs that unless you did rehash, they would have been gone. Somebody else would have gotten them. They would have started their process here in about another 6 months of looking again. Oh, honey, let's start looking again, But you're going to go through your rehash. Someone else comes out there. It's a new face, not the same sales guy. That's the biggest misconception is I love my sales team so much. I'm going to put them back out. He couldn't sell it the first time he was there. You're going to send him back? Put another face, another conversation in front of him. And so that is rehash, and that is how important rehash is. When people are looking like, how do you close 80%? Realize that people, they've already had you out, and they're willing to have you out again. They're buyers.
One of the things I love, Did you want to go, Dave?
I wanted to pick up off that point in what might sound like a bizarre concept here. I believe in two different types of rehash, right? There's the one that Chuck just mentioned. Absolutely agree with him. But here's another one, and I'm going to start with a statistic. Statistically, at least half the people who used a contractor wouldn't recommend them. At least half. That's a statistic. That's an industry statistic. A. B. Separate point, and then I'm going to tie them together. Regardless of type of personality, and Chuck can take you into detail that, I mean, would blow all of us away, and it's one of the reasons he's so good at what he does. But there's one thing in common with almost every individual born in this earth. Trust is the most important thing they're looking for. And the recipe for trust is demonstrating that you care and respect them, right? So if you take those two key things together, I love during downtimes getting on the phone and calling people that did not buy from us and call them 6 months later and say, hey, I want to learn from me because I really care about you. And I really wanted to do your project. All right. You guys were awesome people. I really wanted to do it. I need to learn. What did I miss? What didn't I hear? Other than there may have been some price issues, and I don't want to go there. Other than that, what did I miss? Well, what you're doing now is they're playing back to you what they do remember and liked about you. And you know, I didn't get business from them, but my referral numbers went way up, and they were the best. They were great referrals because now it's top of mind of, hey, I wasn't totally happy with who I had. I'm always going to be asked, hey, who do you use or who do you recommend? The person I didn't give it to, but I just told them the things I liked about him, referrals go way up. And that's an inexpensive lead generator.
Yeah.
Very true.
Rosalind, you were going to jump in there.
Yeah, the one thing I was just going to touch on that I love what Chuck talked about the process, right? So I think sometimes where an owner or a sales manager might have feel some resistance to what you just described of putting a different face onto it is like, well, but my guy went out and they did the work and that feels unfair. They started the process. But I think if you have that clear process established, then it's clear for your salespeople. They know what to expect. So then it kind of takes out some of that emotion or hurt that could come with, well, but I already did all the work. I warmed them up. I think about it like when I asked my husband to open a jar and he just comes over and and I'm like, well, I was already loosening it, So I think you can just be mindful of the fact that you may have some salespeople who have those feelings about it. But if we kind of get ahead of those feelings and those expectations with our process, and we have clear communication around that, we can kind of lessen some of that. Well, I warmed it up for you.
So I'm going to ask a question to both you and Chuck and not share my own opinion because I don't have a strong opinion, but I've seen it blow up before.
I know it's coming.
Chuck, when you do rehash, I've seen all versions of this. The original salesperson, how does it affect compensation?
I was waiting for this one. So we remember you have to control your culture here. Most companies are like, hey, he didn't sell it. He doesn't get anything. I'm going to be a little in your face here and say, look, the guy spent his gas, and if this is a 1099, let's not get into that again. But if this is a 1099, he spent his gas, he spent his time, to get out there. But even if they are W-2, they did spend their time to go out there. So you do want to throw them a little bone on this and say, hey, we're going to give you either maybe it's $100, $200. We like to throw $100 at the rep, but let them know that, hey, we still care about you. You couldn't sell it for whatever reason. Maybe they just didn't connect with you, but we sent someone else out and they were able to close it. And, we want to thank you for the opportunity for warming that customer up.
Yeah, that's good.
This may be a 60% closer that just had a rehash slapped in his face. And we don't want that. When I first got into sales, it used to be, who's the rehash king? And, that was very negative. And we don't want that inside of our culture because we do love rehash.
That is a good catch, Chuck, and I appreciate that. And Dave for bringing that up too. Like, that is a good catch. Because I mean, that rehash person, could definitely get looked at kind of pretty bad by some of the sales folks, like that they're just making all this money off the work that they laid the groundwork for. So now, if you're a sales guy out there right now and you're listening to this and you're like, well, I don't have a rehash person and I don't really call my people back. I want to say the statistic is somewhere around 7 in the home industry, and you guys can correct me if I'm wrong, 7 additional touches post initial sales appointment in order to close somebody who didn't close on the spot. I think that's the number. I could be wrong. But about 7 additional touches if you didn't close them in the one call. So if you're a sales guy listening to this and you're thinking, man, I don't know if I want to do this, let me give you a little practice. For every person who you don't close on the single call, write a number, the value of their deal, their name, and their phone number on a piece of paper for every person you didn't close, and then keep doing that. And what you'll discover is that number will be thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars. And one of the reasons why we don't call people back is because we don't realize that we just left thousands of dollars out there in the world blowing around. So put a number. If you put a number to that person, not that people are numbers, right? But we need to understand the value. If we put a number to that person, okay, then that adds a value to your phone call. Okay, it adds a value to the phone call, the text message, the pop by, whatever it might be. But if you don't put a value next to it, then it tends to feel like it doesn't have the same impact, right? When you go back and you go, man, I didn't close these 10 people, and that represents, holy cow, $180,000.
Yep.
If you closed half of them with a quick 10 phone calls.
Let me put this into perspective for you. Our rehash rep was our number 2, $100,000 in rehash this month. That was our second highest rep this month. If we didn't have this guy, that would have been $100,000 we didn't have.
Yep.
Let's talk about these 5. What's first? What's the first thing? I'm working on my strategy, which you should be at this time of year. You people
Absolutely.
out there watching the show. If you're not working on your strategy now and you're waiting until January 1st to work on it, you're too late. You're already behind the people that are getting ahead of you. And so what are some of those? What's the first thing that they should be focused on when developing their strategy from a marketing perspective?
A lot of people don't talk about this, but the most important thing you have to do before you walk into any marketing plan or strategy is you really need to have a clear written vision and goals and your understanding about what's happening in your market. A lot of times people will say, I want more leads. But what they don't do is they don't really know what that vision is or what their goals are. So they'll switch offers out randomly throughout the year and not really have an idea about why. When you walk into a year and you're like, okay, this is what I want to accomplish. I want to do this part for this department. I want to reach these people. I want to see these types of sales. I want these types of referrals. And really understand that and also what's happening in your local market, you can create a plan for success. Without having that, what you're doing is you're saying, I'm just going to randomly say, I just want re-roof leads, but I don't really know. Is that metal? Is that shingle? Is it going to come from these types of homes? Is it going to be from, is it storm-based? There's so many things you have to think about before, and it's really having that clear vision will help you no matter what you decide to do for your market.
Let's get number 2 real quick. Number 2, we've talked about it a little bit, right? In Google My Business, why is that such an important strategy going into 2022?
So again, because a lot of marketers sell Facebook, I'm just being honest about my industry. They're like Facebook. And then they promote build content, but they never, ever talk about take that same content and put it on Google My Business. And part of your relevance score is about putting regular posts on and getting regular reviews and responding to reviews and keeping your information up to date. So even though you probably haven't had a change for things like COVID update, still put it in there. This is our current COVID update.
This is the work we did. Putting those reviews.
Current COVID update in Texas.
What is
Be
COVID?
normal.
That's
Just
what they
do
say.
that. Do that.
Texas, Utah, Florida. They're like, what is COVID? So it's important that you put those things on there because that relevance score impacts your rank in those organic map listings, the ones you can pay for, your organic search, those map packs. And you'll see on there, there's, they call it insights, and it'll say, this is how many map views you had. This is how many search views you had. And not doing those things, you'll notice you'll have a decrease. So whether even if you're a small business, aim to get 1 to 2 reviews a week, like just 1 to 2, and then make sure you respond to them, because responding is as equally important as getting the reviews. So a lot of people are like, oh, I just need to get them. No, you have to respond to them, and respond to them, whether they're good, bad, ugly, whatever. You have to absolutely respond to them. That is part of your score. And those reviews alone are over a third of your relevance score. That posting that content, 1 to 2 jobs a week. And for me personally, as a marketer, it's frustrating when you're like, are you guys in business? Like, I feel like you're probably doing a roof. You're probably installing something somewhere. You've done a kitchen, you've done a bath, whatever. You signed up a customer. Send those things to your marketing team. It literally takes them, no joke, 5 minutes max to post across all those places, your social media and your Google My Business, because Facebook is not giving you SEO credit. The only SEO credit you're probably getting from that is going to be if they search by images, maybe, and your reviews. Okay. So like when you search a business, you see those reviews, the Google ones, and then the bottom, it's like, here's House, here's Home Advisor, here's Facebook, here's BBB, here's whatever. But you absolutely have to do it. It is the cheapest and best way you could spend 5 minutes of your day to build your business.
I hate interrupting, but this thing is something that every contractor should have. It's Company Cam. It is the one piece of software every home service contractor should use to document their jobs. Every picture you ever take is associated to the address you took it. It's like Instagram for every project that you have. Give a link to the homeowner and share it to them while you're doing your inspection and win more sales. If you want to find out more about Company Cam, check the description below. Save a few bucks by following our link. Give me 3 just cool marketing things that you have seen contractors do that might not be the thing we see. Like, of course, we see all the, hey, let me get you 30 leads from Facebook every single month thing, right? Like, we all know that one. And like, seriously, if somebody sends me that, it's immediate. I delete it. But give me 3 things that might be different that you guys can help with or do that maybe others don't.
I am highly confident that most contractors are not using text campaigns, outbound texting. And I can tell you, I ran one for a customer that was, or a client of ours that was a little nervous, but he's been with us since 2008, and they had a 24% response rate.
Wow.
That is really
number.
high. Huh? Yeah. And you know how much it cost them? I think it cost them maybe $150 in their first one they sent out.
It's part of our strategy for next year. It's like, okay, texting is that's what I look at. I literally got a text just before I got on with you from somebody trying to sell me something, and I was polite with them. I answered it. I would, like, if I got the email, delete or not even look at, right?
Yeah. And again, I mean, this is not someone who was offering a killer deal. There was no discount. It was just, hey, we know you need this service. Don't forget to schedule it.
What's the best way for them to get those cell numbers and those? Like, I know they're a customer, we get it that way, but what about those ones that you talk about that are in between? You know, they're kind of yellow.
Well, they're in yellow. They contacted you. So the best thing you can do is create an opt-in process. So you can do an opt-in process through when you're collecting their information, and they don't have all these things in all the places. So you can send an outbound one, like saying, would you like to opt in? To people, like, let's say you download leads from Facebook or Home Advisor. Those are not text compliant. Like, you have to actually ask them if you want to opt in. Now, if you do it through your website, you're sending traffic to your website, and they fill out a form, they contact your office, it's on a recorded call. Hey, can I, opt you in for this and give you, and you could say anything like, hey, this is a way for us to keep you up to date should you choose to use us. Again, giving them a reason to opt in. You could get offers, and you can also get referrals, or we'll pay you for those referrals. And then they're going to.
We usually suggest something along the lines, hey, can we add you to our discount list?
Yeah, but you have to also think too, depending on the type of contractors, not everyone has, depending on what type of business you are, is going to have a discount. You've got a guy who, let's say they do HVAC. they're probably, if it's a repair, there's going to be a service call. So there may not be a discount because they still have to find a way to make that money, and it's also an immediate need. If I'm in Florida, which I am, and my AC goes out, I'm not necessarily looking for the discount. I'm looking for the fastest service. So again, building back to that customer experience.
So
Otherwise, you're selling on price.
You hit something. So knowing what your business is and what it does and how it does it is how you tailor that. So if I'm an HVAC company, I might say something different. Can I add you to our priority list so we can get out there sooner?
Yes.
Right.
So that's one. Storms are great ones. Like, hey, can we add you to the list? So if there's a storm in your area next year, we can put you on a list and you can get prioritized scheduling. So if you're in an area where, hail's like this, or there's a hurricane, I'm just saying like Western states, Midwest, not Florida. We have it like this, but they all pretend like it's this. But that's not
right. So
Texas,
Texas one. What else we got?
Well, I was going to say one other way to opt in too is you can ask them when they review you and when they make a payment if they pay you via text. So those are other ways. And those are the ones you want to ask for referrals. So you can tag them so you understand this is the yellow light people. These are the people that have already paid me. So you can basically segment them. The other thing I would recommend, and I know everybody, when I say this, contractors do this, but you don't have to spend all your budget on Google ads, because if they don't know what's really different about you and they can't see that, you're basically just bidding on price and you're going to be one of three. Better be one of three when they're searching for you and they know something about you. Your cost per lead will go down. So focus on things that really show and tell your story. That's not a billboard. Driving by for 7 seconds is not going to tell me what's spectacular about you. Print piece, if you're a custom deck company and you've got $100,000 deck, yes, that could work. But if you're a roofer, it depends. You
don't get excited about a picture of a roof out there?
I mean, I do because I love roofing, but not everyone else does. You know what I mean? They may not think, okay, well, Susie got one down the street and it was free, but now my insurance might go up. You have to think that there's a lot more going on in someone's mind than just someone down the street got it for free. You have to think about where they're at. Things like TV and radio can and do work when you focus on your reputation and why they should choose you. And that's
aren't those outrageously expensive?
No, which is crazy. Everyone says that to me because I'll see contractors that spend an ungodly amount of money on SEO, on Google ads, on Facebook ads, and then they're just one of somebody. They have nothing that really separates them from anyone else. They're all like, I can give you that free storm estimate. I can do whatever. I'm going to give you great service. Everyone expects those things from you. But all of a sudden, when you're telling your story, you're showing your work, and the cost to reach a actual target audience, with the exception of radio, because unless you're doing Pandora or something like that, you cannot guarantee the audience, because your radio rep is basing any data they're giving you off of 500 people in their market, if you're lucky. So versus TV, you're measuring 1 in every 2 homes with an Experian household match. So there's no BS about their income or their home ownership status, period. Okay. Same with OTT, depending on your provider. I'm going to just be very clear about that.
Isn't that a song? OTT? What is OTT? What is
over
that?
the top? So that could be, I highly recommend placing either through Hulu Direct or through Premion. Premion is my favorite because although Hulu can have similar prices to Premion, it doesn't have all the same type of attribution that Premion has. So if you are a brick and mortar shop, or where you want people to come and look at your showcase room, you have solar, you have kitchens, you can see that foot traffic as well as people that saw your ad on TV, came to your website, and then how they got there. Do they, see your ad on TV and then go to you organically? That means your SEO guy's doing a good job and your TV's working right, Do they show up in your store? We can do all of that through Premion. And the cost per 1,000 is typically a lot less than what you're looking at for Facebook, which, by the way, does not in any way, shape, or form. I guess I'm really passionate about a lot of things this year. Does not have home ownership that is verified. It says interest next to it.
Yeah.
Interest does not mean I own something. I am interested in remodeling my bathroom, and I plan on doing it in 2022. But it does not mean I'm doing it today, and it doesn't mean that I'm a homeowner, because I could be looking at my apartment, dream shopping, and looking at whatever content I want online. Because let's be honest, we all look at stuff that we're not buying today. It might be rifles because you're going hunting. It might be, well, maybe I don't know what you hunt with rifles. So I don't hunt. I just shoot. But it could be, a car you're looking at. It could be a vacation or a destination. It's grabbing that information and showing it on Facebook as an interest. It does not mean you have a purchase intention. It does not mean you have that income. It is all inferred. It's like, we think because she's looking at a Ferrari, she must have a lot of money. We think she's a homeowner because she's looking at kitchen stuff. Okay. So you look at that, and then how many people you can reach, and that the attention span. Am I just,
Yeah.
So there's a lot that goes into it, and that's a whole conversation for
For
another.
those of you listening on audio, she was just like scanning through her phone and
I forget that this
swiping
is
to the
on
side
video.
there. Hey, Jessica, this is. What was maybe some of the bigger challenges for you as you got into it? What was stopping you right away going, man, I don't know about this?
The first thing was knocking on people's doors, and I just didn't think it was, my dad always grown up, somebody knock on the door, but don't answer and don't tell them we're here, so I would always think about that, and I'd have bad thoughts in my head. But then, once I got that out of my head, and I really just tried to take control of the conversation whenever I knocked on the door and I had somebody talking to, and just have a good conversation with them.
So Chuck, you got a guy, he's got some talent. There's no fear there, because I had the same dad he did. And my dad was like, he wouldn't say, don't act like we're not here. He would run to the door, open the door, say, get the hell off my property. And so that was what I thought about door knocking. I'm like, man, this is going to be awful. And so you've got a guy like that. He's got some of those past fears and stigmas with the door knocking thing. How do you coach him get kind of through that and past that?
So when you look at somebody that has, whether it be call reluctance or knock reluctance, it's always, and I only say this for canvassers and callers, and that is, some will, some won't next. You got to look at the no's versus the yes. It's called going for no. And, if you have the mentality of understanding that I need to go out and get 100 no's today, even if you don't get as many yeses as you want, you still feel accomplished because you got your goal of the number of no's. But most of the time, what you're going to find out, and what Zach has found out, is you're going to come up with twice as many yeses. And if you had that goal of, I'm going to get 20 yeses today, or I'm going to get 10 yeses today, and you get 20. That's really the mentality and the training that you need to have to be that canvasser.
So Zach, that was the thing, like focus on the no's, go get those, and the yeses are going to come through. Okay, cool.
It's a numbers game, that's for sure.
It absolutely is. For me, it was a little bit of a mind game too. There was this mind game of fear there, and just perception. This perception of what a door knocker is, somewhere between ditch digger and garbage man, right? Like that's kind of what we picture in our mind, somewhere around there. And I can remember being pretty frustrated with it. Although I was experiencing success and I was doing some similar things like, hey man, I got to go get all these no's and I'm going to get the yeses. I can remember sitting down one day and going, why am I doing this? Why am I knocking all these doors? What's driving me to do this? And I remember looking at every door. I can remember this like it was yesterday. I looked at every door and I had $1,000 bill on it. And that was why I was knocking the door. That was a $1,000 bill I could go pick up if I just knocked that door. And that was motivated me for a while, but it still kind of had that stigma of salesman, right? And I thought about it a little bit longer, and I said, why do I have to knock these doors? Why aren't these people just calling us? Why aren't they just, finding us, searching us out, and we go to their house? And I came to the realization because they didn't know. They didn't know we existed, and really somebody else should be doing it. And so this other entity that should be doing it, especially in the insurance world, is the insurance company. They know every homeowner inside of that hail map way better than we do, and they know where they live, they're inside of that zone, and all that stuff. They also have a contract with them that says, hey, you have damage to your house, we're going to take care of it. Why in the world aren't they calling every one of those people saying, hey, you should probably get an inspection on your home? Well, pretty simple. They don't want to spend the money. So it changed my whole perspective and mindset on it that, hey, My job isn't to go out there and sell as many people as I can. My job is to go out and educate as many people as I can. And if I can get them to understand why their insurance company isn't calling them, they're probably going to be my customer. It worked out really well for me. My numbers went up dramatically. And so I see you shaking your head. You're like, yeah, exactly. That's exactly what I'm doing. And so that's super cool to see. It's one of those things, like, I think we all have something like this, right? There's something that's in our past, we hope, or maybe even we're dealing with today, that we don't broadcast, right? There's a stigma that goes along with it, and alcohol and drugs has that associated with it. Like, if we've had those problems, we almost like don't want to tell anybody, right? Like, we try to keep that in the closet back there. It's a skeleton. We don't want anybody to know about it. But then whenever it comes out later, because invariably it's going to come out, people are like, well, can I believe everything else the guy says, right? And there's also the stigma that anybody that's had that kind of an issue is a bad person, right? And that's not necessarily the case, right? Eric, tell us a little bit about your involvement. Why are you involved? Who you're with? Let everybody know who you are.
Yeah, thank you, Jim. Again, thank you for having us. This is obviously a big deal and super important to us. I own D&M Roofing here in Omaha. Owned this for a long time and been in the business for a while. A while back, Paul talked about it, and so not to tell the same story, but we met and kind of became friends a few years ago, and found out that we had a lot in common. Just in history and roofing and other items, right? And so we kind of started connecting on that and wanted to figure out a way to, like I say, to give back, and couldn't really figure it out right away. And then I remember we had just a bunch of quick phone calls and being like, well, could we do this? Could we do that? Could we, whatever it is. And then one day he called and said, hey, let's do a foundation. Let's figure out how to send people to treatment. Because what we realized was, for us, and this isn't everybody, but for us, our lives were saved. My life was saved because I got the opportunity to go to a treatment center, and I got to live in that bubble for 30 days, whatever it is, where I was just submersed into recovery, and I didn't have a bunch of outside influences that I was having to deal with. So I wasn't having to deal with work issues or family issues or whatever. Like, we all still have that running in our head, but I was there to focus on the one thing, and the one thing was recovery. And we realized that not a lot of people get the opportunity to do that because it's expensive, and there's, not everybody has insurance that covers it. And also, to Paul's point, people don't want to talk about it. And so when we got the opportunity to come up with this foundation, we wanted, kind of the mission of it was to be able to send people to treatment to get that help, and then be able to, come home and have the support from other people in the group, in the industry. And then, kind of to your point earlier, what it's really morphed into is that we've got this really neat community of people that have gotten to know each other. And there's one thing that we all talk about with alcoholism or drug abuse or whatever, is that people that are in that world and have lived that world, we're the only ones that really get it. So we can sit here and have this conversation, and you can ask questions, and you want to have knowledge and, try to understand where we were, where we came from, how we got there, and how we got where we are now. But only another alcoholic or another drug addict really gets what we've been through. And it's hard to explain it to a normal person, right? It's really hard to explain that. And so I think that the people out there that were maybe scared to talk about it before, they let their guard down a little bit when they see me, Paul, and John, and some of the other guys out there talking about it, and they know that we get them and that we understand what they're going through more so than somebody that hasn't been through that before. And I think that maybe gives them the courage, because it takes a lot of courage to make that phone call And it gives them the courage to call one of us and ask for help, because asking for help for guys in this industry, that's an alpha oriented, industry of a bunch of men, generally speaking. Like, we've got women in roofers and recovery as well, but the numbers are the numbers, and it's just an alpha oriented male industry. Nobody wants to ask for help. And that's why we're here, is so that we can answer the phone when somebody calls and asks for help.
So that's interesting, because it was one of the questions I had for you. Like you called me a normal person. I don't know if that applies necessarily, but I haven't had these issues, so I can't understand. I haven't walked in your shoes before, and I have a big appreciation for being able to have a conversation with people that have walked in your shoes before. And so I see the value in that. One of the questions I had, because as you look at this industry, and if you're any on Facebook or social media or all that stuff, you see it all the time. The talking about drugs, the hey, let's go have a beer, the man, I'm hungover today, especially in like the really rough roofers groups. And I wonder if those aren't really like cries for help in part. And secondly, do people really want the help? It's just the alpha part keeping them from doing it. Do you think that most of them want help?
Who knows, right? Like, not everybody needs recovery, right? And we don't sit here and preach and say that we think that everybody should stop drinking, or that, even somebody that's, but like people that are out there having a good time. If you're having a good time and it's not affecting your life and your family and your, everything that's close to you, then it doesn't apply, right? But we're there to support the people that realize that there's something wrong and they want to get better. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
A little bit more about a tool that we have to help you do this, but really one of the first things is your first impression, and we call it the 2-second test. So studies have shown they do heat maps where they actually track people's eyes, and then bounce rates is how long somebody stays on the website before they bounce. So when somebody lands on the website, based on all the studies they've done and stuff, they determine you have about 2 seconds to grab somebody's attention and get them hooked to scroll down past the main section, the above the fold section, 2 seconds, or else they're gone. So if you are coming onto your website and maybe your text is hard to read, maybe it's too small, maybe what it says doesn't really apply to what you do, then that's really a very easy win that you can do, is just look at that 2-second test. When you land on the website, count to 2. If you don't know what problem you solve and how you solve it, just by those 2 seconds, then you're probably missing out. You're probably having a very high bounce rate because of that.
Awesome. The 2-second rule. When you keep my attention for 2 seconds, they might stay a little, and I can attest to that. Our time that people were spending on our website was about 32 seconds whenever we first dug into this.
Yeah.
We were there for 32 seconds, grab whatever like info they could, and they go, no more, and off they go, right?
Yeah.
Now we're up to almost 4 minutes that people are spending on their website. So we did some very practical and tactical things to do that, but we had to go get some help for it. It wasn't something that we were all that brilliant on, and we were able to get some of those things. What are some of those things guys could do to increase that engagement?
Yeah, so one of the biggest things that I see happening is a lot of times the above the fold section, we call it the hero section. It's kind of industry lingo. The hero section of the website is that first panel that you see when you land on there. And a lot of times it can be easy to try and cram too much into there. So I see, you land on there and it's this big long sentence that like spans the entire thing, and then you've got a bunch of paragraphs underneath that, and it's just like too much information, like all up there in your face. And the sad part about being a copywriter in this day and age is that people don't actually read text very much, especially when they first land on a website. So you have to rope them in. You have to get that interest, that attention first, and then you can present more content. So I would say if you have more than, I don't know, 20 words there in that hero section, you're probably overwhelming people with too much text content. So reduce the amount of text content. That's huge. The second would be a good image. This doesn't necessarily have to relate exactly to your industry. So like, for instance, I've done websites for dentists, and a lot of times they think, okay, I'm a dentist, I got to put teeth like right front and center. But you gotta think a level past that, because there are a lot of dental images out there that are just not pleasant to look at. So if somebody lands on your website and all they see is teeth, they might get a little scared away. So think a level below that is like, okay, this dentist, or even for a contractor, the people, they don't necessarily want a deck. They don't necessarily want a roof. So if you have a picture of a roof there, a lot of times people are gonna be like, okay, like, I get it, you're a roofer, but that's subliminally not really speaking to their actual desire, their actual needs. So the level below that would be, the family having a nice dinner out on the deck on a nice summer afternoon or something like that. So actually go a level deeper, instead of just like, here's what I do. Actually kind of get that subliminal messaging of, here's the benefit that is going to provide to you once this service is complete. So that's the two big things that I would say on that hero section. Make sure that your text is very targeted, so you want not too much text, and you also want to make sure that it really lays out the problem and solution right there. So for contractors, then again, like I said, just make sure that your image is actually communicating the benefit of what you do and not just what you do.
Yeah, I've seen some pretty good ones on it. One of the ones that really sticks out in my mind, it was two pictures, like a before and an after. And the before was water dripping on the side of this guy's head, and his wife sitting in bed with like this angry face. And then next to it was both of them dead asleep with like, rainbows and unicorns in their dreams and stuff. And it's like, that was pretty good. That was engaging.
Yeah, there you go. Nice.
So great advice. I really dig it. So yeah, so you and I just spent this past Monday and Tuesday with dozens of sales reps, teaching them this top rep sales process. And part of what we were doing is going through a presentation, how to present and what that might look like for somebody out in the field. So today's episode is about what's wrong with most sales presentations and proposals. And so, what are the, maybe two or three things that you see out there that where people fail at this presentation aspect of things?
I'm going to tell you, when it comes to presentations, several things. So the first is that the sales rep has no idea how to give a presentation. That is the first and probably biggest issue that I see. And then when you get into presentations, there's so many pages that should not be there. They're just fluff. Nobody cares about it. And I'm not going to name any big manufacturers, but a lot of these big manufacturers will send the dealers these presentations, and you'll have the Serenity page, and this whether maybe it's a siding. This siding is so surreal, and nobody cares. It's just taking up a sheet of paper, or it's taking up a slide. So you always have to be educating the homeowner, whether you're educating them on the company, what the company can do, and then what they should be more worried about, or the homeowner should be more worried about, which is what's about to go on their house.
Yeah, so one of those things that I see that's like one of those biggest problems out there in this home services world, where smaller companies, sometimes we don't even have a presentation. Like, the presentation is actually determined by the person that we go and see, and they direct everything, which puts them in charge of the whole presentation. And we're in this role of really being more information giver, because they're asking us a bunch of questions instead of actually truly presenting a valuable thing that we offer. And what happens whenever we do that is it's not repeatable. One time it sounds like this, one time it sounds like that. And then we hire somebody new, And that new person, we tell them, hey, I don't have anything like that. I don't have a so just come listen to me. Come listen to me. You'll learn it. You'll gain it through osmosis or magic or something. I don't know what it is that they're expecting them to get, but it's not repeatable. So we can't perfect it. We can't measure it. And there's just no tool for it, which I think is a big disservice to anybody that comes into our teams. Would you agree?
I will. And with that being said, I don't care if it's a flip book, PowerPoint, Engage, any of those, you have to do something. It can't just be, I'm going to sit in front of them and I'm going to talk them to death, or I'm going to use our trifold and hopefully sell off of it. I mean, they really have to sit. And I understand where a lot of these companies say, oh, the customer doesn't care about it. They will tell you that they don't care, but when they go through that presentation, it's really what sells the deal if they do it right.
Oh, you're still here? Well, you must have thought it was great. Make sure to like and subscribe to Contractor Radio and never miss an episode, because we're here to help you get better at what you do.